Good evening and welcome everybody to our webinar that we are facilitating today. It's going to be all about setting up your child's device, and we've got some tips and tricks for you to try and ease this process. We know that it can be a stressful time of the year getting these things done and dusted so that your child is ready to learn and to complete projects and all sorts of things on your device, on their devices. So we hope that these little tips and tricks will help you. My name is Angela Scherer. My job is really just to introduce the session, and at the end I will facilitate some Q&A. Our team, our digital transformation team, is on the call as well. Marcel van Niekerk is going to be facilitating the session today, but our whole team is representing Curro Technology, and we will all do our best to answer any questions that you've got along the way. On that note, you should see a Q&A panel somewhere on your screen, either on the top or maybe the right-hand side. If you click on that Q&A button, you'll be able to post your question. We will try and answer some of the questions in the actual chat. Otherwise, as I said, we'll try and get to them at the end. If we've got a lot of questions and we're seeing questions coming through on different topics, we'll take note of these and look at facilitating additional webinars on topics that we see that you are interested in. I am already seeing questions coming through about whether this is going to be recorded. Yes, we always record our webinars, and we will make this available on the Curro Technology YouTube channel, and we'll be sharing the link at the end. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Marcel van Niekerk. She is going to be facilitating the session this evening, and enjoy. We hope you find it useful. Thanks, Marcel. Over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As Angela said, my name is Marcel van Niekerk, and I'm part of the digital transformation team, which is part of the bigger Curro Technology team. And our whole role within the group is really to support our teachers, our learners, and you as parents. So we've put together just a few things to go through in terms of setting up your learner device and how you can just look after what's happening on that device moving forward. So I'm just going to touch on our agenda this evening. As I've already said, welcome. And we are going to start with understanding what is required of a device. So we're going to get a little bit technical in a moment. We're also going to look at benefits of onboarding a Windows device. And if that sounds a bit strange, I'm going to explain that in a moment. We also offer free upgrade of Windows to Windows 10. So I'm going to show you a little bit of how that works. We're going to look at Curro credentials, which is basically the username and password that your learner is issued with. I'm also going to show you a little bit about Microsoft Office and the benefits that your learner has with being with Curro and having a Microsoft Office license. I'm also just going to go through the process of how to reset a password if your learner forgets, if your child forgets their password. Registering for MyHub, what MyHub is and how you can access it. We're also going to look at downloading e-reader applications. So if your school makes use of ITSI or Snappify, I'm going to go through that process with you. And then some accessing how-to videos. So Angela just mentioned that we have a YouTube channel where we've created some helpful videos that can maybe assist you when setting up your child's device. And the last one is if you really are stuck, how to find some help and where to contact us. Right, so the first thing that I want to go through is basically what we look for in devices for learners. And this just means that the learner will not have any problems with their device, that everything will run smoothly, and we know that the device will keep up with learning. So there are two different pictures on the screen, but basically we support and recommend Windows devices. So that just means it's got the Windows operating system, and you'll normally find that with laptops or two-in-one devices. Now, some schools also allow Android or iOS Apple devices, but these we cannot support by Curro. So we can support Windows devices, and I'll show you what that means in a moment, but we do allow Android and Apple devices depending on the school. Now, if you'd like the full document, you're more than welcome to contact your school, the front office, and they'll be able to give you the full document with all of this information. But I've screenshotted just some of the most important parts. And with these, I'm going to go into what all these technical terms actually mean. So when we say 8 gigabytes of RAM, RAM is the computer's short-term memory. So if your learner has got Microsoft Word, they've got and the e-reader apps open, they're busy with a presentation, the more applications running at once, the more RAM it needs. So 8 gigabytes of RAM is quite standard with your new devices, and that just means that your child's device will be able to keep up with having a few applications open. So if the RAM isn't good, you'll see that the device is a bit slower and it doesn't keep up with your child working on it. So with the RAM, that's like the short-term memory, we also need the long-term memory for a device, and that's just plain storage. So if you're in a shop, it might talk about a hard drive or a solid state drive. That's just different types of storage, but minimum 500 gigabytes. Storage is where you download software like Teams, Windows, Office, all of those things. So the more storage, the more applications can be stored. Then we talk about a processor, and you'll normally find that it's i3, i5, i7. The bigger the processor, the more expensive, but the basic processor at the moment is normally your i3 processor, and this just means it's the basic instructions that run the computer. So the better the processor, the quicker the computer can respond and execute commands. So it works hand in hand with your RAM. So you will normally find Intel i3, i5, i7, as I mentioned, and Intel is normally just the name, is the brand name for your processor. So as I said, the bigger the processor or the higher the number, the better the processor is. Then we also need USB ports. So those are the little ports on the outside of a computer, and that's normally very basic to have two. Obviously, some devices have more, but this is for flash drives and mice or mouses and a keyboard and a speaker, whatever the case might be. 2 USB ports is quite standard. And then also an HDMI or an HDMI mini port, and that's just a very fancy word for where you plug in your projector. So this is very helpful if a learner has to do presentations at school, but most devices do come standard with an HDMI port. Then Wi-Fi, there's a number at the beginning of that, but it basically just means that this Wi-Fi is able to connect to most Wi-Fi networks. All your standard devices will have the right Wi-Fi, but if you're not sure, you can take that document that your school has and take it with you when you want to purchase a device, and then you can just check that with the device the specs. And then Windows 10 Home. So the standard operating system at the moment is Windows 10, some are Windows 11, which are both supported by Curro, and this can then be upgraded to Windows Education. Now, the difference between Windows Home and Windows Education is just some of the applications that you are able to use, and you have a broader offering of Windows applications if you upgrade to Education, and it's completely for free, and that's an offer that you have with Curro. Okay, so when I refer to benefits of onboarding a Windows device to enable policies, that's very fancy talk for basically allowing the laptop or the device to be connected to Curro's network, but it's onboarded to our network, and that means we can enable policies. Now, policies are basically controls that we can manage the device from a collective group standing. So we can install certificates on the device to keep for security purposes. The learners will be able to connect to the Wi-Fi without problems. And Curro can enable policies for the device to ensure that nobody else can log into the device from your child's profile. Policies ensure that security software is constantly updated to keep your child safe. So this includes things like antivirus software and so on. Curro policies also assist with installing software and education apps that your child may need for learning. So if your learner's device is onboarded, you can, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint will already be installed. And it helps manage Windows and Office updates while your child is at school. So this is automatically done at school as well. So that sometimes can be quite a big update. So a lot of data is used, which is then automatically done when connected to the school's Wi-Fi, which you can imagine is quite helpful. Okay, so when I mentioned that you can upgrade Windows, it's a very easy process that happens. So Windows 10 is fully supported by Curro. When you purchase a device, you can buy the cheapest version of Windows, which is the Home Edition, and this depends on what device you're buying. So just check with the store or whoever you're buying the device from. Just check that Windows is included. I know that some are, you have to buy it separately. Curro learners can upgrade to Windows Home from Windows Home to Education at no cost, and your Windows just has to be up to date under the device's settings. So you are able to click on the link curro.onthehub.com, and that you can just type into your browser, and it'll take you through the process of downloading Windows 10 for free. Now, this is also a tutorial on our YouTube channel if you do need some more information, which we will share the link of at the end of the webinar. So when we say sign in, I'm just going to go back a slide. When we say sign in over here, when you enroll your learner in Curro, they will receive a username and password. So that will normally be a number, 21015@curro.co.za. It looks like an email address. And then a temporary password, which is just a jumble of letters and numbers. Now, these get assigned upon enrollment. And the temporary password then needs to be changed as soon as possible so that there isn't any security risks there. This password and username and password is very important to remember and to keep safe, because from this password and username, you can log into the school's Wi-Fi. So all of our campuses have a Curro Wi-Fi network, which is secure. And they're also able to log into Microsoft applications. They can log into their e-reader applications like ITSI and Snapify to access their digital textbooks. So it's very important that these username and passwords are kept safe. They're also used to log into Microsoft Teams. Just excuse me, I need to sneeze. Excuse me for that. They are also used to log into Microsoft Teams. So the learner chats and talks to other Curro learners and teachers with this username. So it's, again, very important to keep that safe. And if you need to change the password, this is one option. I'm going to show you another in a moment, is to log on to portal.office.com. I will be sharing these links just at the end of the webinar if you just want to go back to them. But it is important to keep your password up to date and to keep it safe. Specifically, if your learner is a bit younger, it might be a good idea from your side as parents just to have a copy of that password somewhere. Okay, so when you have all of your username and password information, you can go and download Office. Now, again, Office Microsoft 365 for Education includes a little more than your Word, Excel, and Outlook. We've got Teams, PowerPoint, and if your school uses Minecraft, which is also an option, it also uses OneNote. I'm just mentioning these very quickly, which is like a digital textbook, exercise book, excuse me, a notebook. But you are able to download all of these applications under the education umbrella of Microsoft for free on your child's device. And if I'm not mistaken, you can download it onto 5 devices, but you will then be using it as your child. So you need to log in with their username and password. And that will also mean that if you download Office, you are then able to work offline. So you don't need to be connected to the Wi-Fi. You can use these applications online, so Word online, Excel online, etc., but you can install them for offline use as well. So this is very simple. You can just go to www.office.com and you're able to download them. Now, the nice thing again, if your device is onboarded, they are automatically downloaded onto the device. Just a note with onboarding, you are more than welcome to speak to your school so that you can have that process done if you have a Windows device. Now, another way that your learner can reset their password is we make a use of a tool called MyPass, which is a password management tool. So again, you will receive as a parent a temporary password to the primary parent's email account, and it needs to remain unique. Why this is so important again is we have instances all around the world where if a password is easy to guess, like 1, 2, 3, 4 or A, B, C, D, E, whatever the case is, another person can guess their password, and then they've got access basically to their digital identity as a Curro learner. So it's very important to make sure that the password is unique and not easily guessed, as it could just avoiding that exploitation of learners like bullying. So this is also available on currostudents.mypass.co.za. Again, I'll just send that link on the chat in a moment, and the learner can then go and reset their password. If a learner is resetting their password, if they can't remember their password at all, any version of their password, an SMS will be sent to the parent. So it's maybe important to sit with your learner and reset that if needed. Okay, and then for you as parents, we have a unique to Curro application called MyHub, and this is our communication portal with parents. So from this portal, you can order uniforms, you can purchase textbooks if your school uses ITSI Pro. So if you're not sure about that, you can just contact your school. You can access digital copies of all your learners' reports. So of previous reports, I'm speaking about academic reports, they are available there. Some schools, depending on the school, use the school calendar, which is accessible here. So it's a digital version of your calendar. And if you haven't registered yet, you can just, if you even search on Google MyHub, it'll come up, myhub.curro.co.za. And all that you do is request your login details. You type in the ID number of one of the parents or guardians that are registered at Curro, and you will be able to then receive a password via email. So there you can go explore, have a look and see what's available to you. But that is also the communication portal for Curro. Then we've got our e-reader apps. So depending on the school, every school is different. They've decided what works best for their school. But our two main platforms in terms of digital textbooks is ITSI or Optimi and Snaplify. So this also needs to be downloaded as an application on the learner's device, which just makes it easier for the learners to access their textbooks offline. So if they're working at home and there isn't Wi-Fi or connectivity, they're still able to access their textbooks. So this depends on the school. ITSI and Snaplify have guides that we will also just point you in the right direction, but you can also just Google depending on which platform your school uses, and you can download the application again, logging in with your learner's Curro email address and password. So this is also dependent on which of the school, which platform they use. Now, with all of these applications that we use at schools, it's important to remember that we have to look at behavior monitoring for schools. So behavior monitoring is primarily focusing on the monitoring of the child or learner's use of the device and the platforms installed thereon against its intended purpose. So Curro does not implement any form of behavior monitoring on learner devices just because of POPI. So it's more important that the parents and guardians are responsible for communicating how they expect their child to interact with devices in ways that reflect your household's norms, standards, and principles. It's the same principle of your child playing on a playground. Behavior monitoring tools and services used to monitor your child's behavior in a digital environment is the parent's responsibility. And it's important that you as a parent check in once in a while to see what the learner is doing on their device. But to help with that, there are a list of tools that you can see on the screen, which is basic parental control applications. And this just allows you as a parent to be able to monitor their devices safely, that they are, again, reflecting those household norms, standards, and principles. So again, behavior monitoring is very important. We all know that the learners of today, or the kids of today, are quite crafty and very tech savvy, but it's important that we're just keeping an eye on their behavior online.
We'll go through some of the questions that we're seeing. It might be worth just covering some of them for everybody's benefit. I think just a couple of other points to note. If you don't do an Azure or domain onboarding of the device, and don't worry if that sounds very technical, but if you do understand that and you prefer not to do that, there is the option to just have the certificates downloaded, which your school can assist you with. And that really just enables your child to connect their device to the internet at the school. So that is an option as well. So I'm just going to whiz through the questions that we've been receiving to see if there are any that are worth having some further discussion on. Magdalene has answered some of them just around, why 500 gigabytes and things like that. And I think this is always the trick with devices. The better specs, the more expensive, but it does generally mean that the device is going to operate better, particularly as your child gets older and they're using multiple different applications. If they're younger, 500 gigabytes might not be necessary. So if they're in primary school, you can probably get a lower spec device. But that's sort of rule of thumb. The higher specs, the better the device is going to operate. We are seeing, of course, with Windows 11 that is you need less storage because a lot more is actually sitting on the cloud, but then it is a little bit more reliant on internet. So you just need to weigh these things up. I also saw a question around where you see the specs on a laptop. So Magdalene's explained how you can go about doing that in terms of going into settings and clicking on system and you scroll down. If you are not sure, then I would just take, like Marcel said, take the learner device specification guide that you can access from your school, take it in with you and have a conversation with the person at the shop that you're buying your device with, and they will be able to guide you through all of the specs if this all sounds like a slightly different language to you. So I would definitely recommend taking that with you. It is important to ask your school for that device document because each of our Curro schools may have slightly different guidelines. They may have adapted them slightly. Some schools only accept Windows devices. Others, like Marcel said, allow Android devices. Maybe also just a slight further explanation on sort of allow but not support. So with Windows devices, we've standardized on Microsoft across all of our Curro schools and at head office. So all of our service desk and support technicians are trained to support Microsoft. They can do a little bit of support with Android and Apple, but because it's not a standardized system, they've not been trained on all of those things. So what they can do is get an Android device or an Apple device connected to the network so that there's internet access and your child can learn. But that's basically the limit of the support that can be provided if something goes wrong with the device. I am actually just struggling to scroll in my chat. There we go. So let's see. So there are questions around Windows allowed us to upgrade to Windows 11, but we were unsuccessful. Does it matter? Can we stay on Windows 10? So absolutely, you can use Windows 10 or Windows 11, and it doesn't matter. With either of those operating systems, you can access Office 365 or Microsoft 365 from office.com, and you can download all the Microsoft applications. Curro have got a licensing agreement with Microsoft, which is why your children can access all of the Microsoft applications and tools. I think we've covered another question around Windows. I see, can we use Windows 10 Professional? You can use Windows 10 Pro. But like we said before, it's better to buy Windows Home because it's cheaper. So we recommend you buy the cheapest one and then rather leverage the agreement that Curro's actually got with Microsoft to upgrade at no additional cost if you're able to do that. And that's that on the hub. I think it's on the hub link that we shared in the chat, and maybe somebody can just share that again. I'm just trying to scroll again. There we go. Let's see. What do you do if your child doesn't receive a temporary login password and username? Yes, so this you should receive from your school. Your school, as your child starts at the beginning of the year, you should receive the email address or the username as well as the temporary password. You do, as Magdalene said in the chat, you will need to contact your individual school to follow up on that if you've not received it for one reason or another. More questions about Windows. Basically, Office works on all versions of Windows. It doesn't matter. Okay, maybe this is a question for you, Marcel. You're an expert in this. I purchased online books. However, I'm unload to download the books from my ebooks. When I log on, I only see last year's books. Maybe you've got some advice on that one.
Hi, yeah. So it depends on if your order did go through. If it has gone through, I would suggest, I'm going to post the email address in the chat. But if you've used ITSI, you can pop them an email just to make sure that their purchase has gone through. Because if you've logged in and you can see your old textbooks, there's nothing wrong with your login details. So I'm just going to post Optimi or ITSI's help desk email address in the chat, and you're more than welcome to pop them an email.
Great, thanks, Marcel. There are some questions about just help with onboarding. So whether that is sort of the domain onboarding or Azure onboarding or certificates. So all of that there are device champions that should be allocated at all of the schools. So I would recommend that you either contact the school's front desk or your child's teacher and ask what the process is for getting your child's device connected to the Curro network. Like we said with some of the other things, each school's got a slightly different process. So just make sure that you contact your school and they should be able to help you. I am just looking down the list of questions. Are the learners expected to carry devices every day? Again, that would depend on the school. So some may, and the age of the learner. So you would again need to contact your school for details like that. Another question, do we necessarily need to have a laptop or is tablet an option? A tablet is absolutely fine. I think provided that it meets the minimum specifications so that your child is in fact able to do all of their work. What we generally recommend is as they get older, it becomes more and more useful to have a laptop. And if you invest in a decent laptop, then it's something that they can take on to whatever they may be doing from a tertiary education perspective, university or otherwise. So, you know, a tablet is fine, maybe it should see them through to matric, but we recommended a laptop once they start getting older. I think I missed one. There was a question which maybe one of you guys saw on the my colleagues just around learners being administrators. I can't remember what the question was. Maybe if somebody saw that, you can help answer it. Maybe if you're looking for it, I'll just carry on. Let's see. Okay. People asking for the YouTube link. I'm struggling a little for some reason to scroll in my chat, so I don't know if the rest of the team see any questions that I have missed.
I'll have a look for you, Angela.
I think I remember seeing one about passwords and it not working. So I think what's key with the password is that you need to make sure that the details on MyHub are correct. So you've got a primary guardian that is listed on MyHub. So please do make sure that if you are the primary guardian, your cell phone number is correct, because as part of the password reset, you'll get a message to your SMS to your cell phone. So if that number is incorrect, you're not going to get that message, and then you're not going to be able to continue with the process. And all of these things are really important because obviously password is absolutely critical for making sure that we keep your child's device safe and your child safe. So Angela, that is the reason for all of those things. Yes, sorry, Marcel.
Sorry, just to jump in. There is a question about ITSI again. So if I can just take that one quickly.
Yep.
So the question is, ITSI said that I need to change the learner's password to access the ebooks I've purchased. So if I change the initial password that was issued by the school via Portal Office or Curro students, will it change the password across the board, i.e. Curro Office My eBook? So yes, if you change your password using, as you said, the Portal Office or MyPass, it will sync to all of the platforms that are integrated, which includes Microsoft Office My eBooks. That won't be a problem. Then it will again stay the same password for all of the applications. So just make sure again to keep that password safe. But yes, it will update to all of them. Thanks,
and
Angela.
In fact, thanks, Marcel. And I think on that note, what may be worth sharing with you all is we use what is called Microsoft Single Sign-On. So in fact, all of our Curro credentials, our Curro email addresses, are in fact Microsoft accounts. And what that means is that we integrate using what's called a single sign-on process. We use our Curro or Microsoft credentials to access all of the primary education systems that we use. So accessing whatever it might be, Snaplify or ITSI or Century or other approved education tools that your schools might be using. And what's good about this is that your children only need to remember one set of sort of one email and password, and they will use that to access all of the education platforms that they are using. It's also for security reasons because we can monitor all of that and make sure that everybody's safe. So that might just be useful for you to understand as well. I'm just scrolling down again to see.
Another one that I can answer. So someone asked, which might happen quite often, is I purchased my son's ebooks using you'll put your email and password instead of his. So what you can do for that is, and they asked, do I have to repurchase the book? So what you can do is also, again, I'm just going to include it in the chat, but you can just send an email to ITSI Snaplify, I'm not sure which one it is, and they can do a book transfer if possible, because the books haven't been opened yet, if that helps.
Great. I see there's a question saying my son's email address is not recognized. Should the enterprise IDs be active? So basically on the first day of the year, in fact, every child's email address and password should be active, or once basically from the beginning of the year. So if something's not working, then I recommend you send an email or call service desk, and we can put those details up again. And as Marcel explained, just give as much information as possible, your child's name, their school, all of those sorts of things, their email address, so that they can investigate if there is something wrong. But they should all be working from the beginning of the year. I am scrolling slowly again. I don't know what's going on. I think my device is overheating in this Joburg heat at the moment. We need some rain.
I can also answer one. Yes,
Go
Max?
for it.
There was a question about whether to have a 2-in-1 device, touchscreen, or just a laptop.
Go for it, Mags. You answer that one.
So the difference is, if your child is more comfortable with a touchscreen device, I would suggest that you go with a touchscreen. If your child, and you are afraid that your child is more prone to dropping a device, or being a little bit more rough, we would suggest not having a 2-in-1, a touchscreen device. It also comes down to cost. 2-in-1, that means touchscreen, is a lot more expensive than a normal laptop, which you have a mouse and a keyboard to use. So it's all up to personal preference.
Great, thanks, Mags. Then there's a question around, is the school providing Wi-Fi for the learners? Yes, all of our schools, primary schools and high schools have got Wi-Fi. So again, that's where you would either onboard your device, or somebody would help your child to download the certificates and install certificates on the device so that they can connect to the Wi-Fi and access internet at school. With that comes restrictions, there are firewalls in place so that we can make sure that all the children are only accessing safe sites. Can you please explain upgrading to Microsoft Education again? Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So what we recommend is when you go and buy a device, you buy it with Windows Home. So you get and Windows Home is the basic operating system. So you get lots of different versions of the operating system. Home is the cheapest one. So if you buy it with Home, then thank you, whoever moved the slides, then you can actually just go to curro.onthehub.com and you follow the steps to actually upgrade from Home to Windows 10. What is really important with this, in fact, is you will be given a long key that sort of unlocks your new set, or your new operating system, Windows 10. And it's really important that you don't lose that key, because really that's the way that you would access that software if you were putting it onto, if you had to reinstall it or something. So it's really important that when you go through this process of upgrading, you make a note of that key and you keep it somewhere safe. So literally you click on that link and then you follow the steps. You sign in first with your child's credentials, your child's email address and password, and you follow the steps once you've clicked on Windows 10, and it's a simple process. You click install, it'll give you the key, save the key, and then you're good to go. Let's see if there's anything else. I hope that that explained it. If that didn't, please let me know and I'll try again. These kids are not computer literate and they struggle in class. Yes, so it depends on the age. So what happens is the curriculum team have put together an IT curriculum that supports the learners in developing basic digital literacy skills. So by the time that they actually start getting their devices, they're equipped to be using the devices, so that it actually helps the teachers trying to also teach using the devices. But yes, it takes some time, and that's why it's likely at most of your primary schools that they're not going to be using it in every lesson all the time. It will just be used for specific activities, and the teachers will, and the IT teachers, computer teachers will be giving them skills along the way as they get older and they move between grades. But I think, as Marcel said earlier, what's really critical is to ensure that you too are keeping yourselves educated on cybersecurity and all of the things that come along with using devices. We will be doing webinars, parent webinars on topics like that. It is something that is becoming more and more critical for all of us, not just the children, but adults as well. So it is something that we all need to keep ourselves educated on. So we will, as we did with this one, we'll share details of those webinars on social media and with your schools to share it with parents. Are there any other questions that we have that I've missed? Anyone?
I'm just going through the questions now.
Angela, if maybe you can help with this one. Is there a reason we need Windows 10 education for Active Directory services? If so, then Windows Pro Edition should also be fine for this. Do they really need to change to education?
I think Pro is fine. I actually can't remember offhand. I think Pro is fine. If it's not working, then what I'd recommend is just sending a query to Service Desk. That's probably the easiest way to find out, unless somebody's able to check quickly. But I think Pro should be fine. If it's not, and it's not working for whatever reason, then we can relook it or send a query to Service Desk and they can answer. I see that there's still some questions in the other section. There's a question here which is, can I download certificates myself? So we don't actually make certificates available to public, including parents to download, just for security reasons. So it is a process that will be done at school with the device champions and teachers. We did used to share it, but we have stopped doing that just to make sure that we're doing all possible to keep our learners, their devices, and Curro safe.
Angela, one last question on this side. Does the device onboarding include security systems like an antivirus?
Yeah, Mags, maybe, I don't know if you want to answer that.
So
yes.
The device comes with every Windows device comes with Windows security, and with the firewalls in place at school, Windows security should suffice. But if you want to be protected, you are welcome to install an antivirus. It's not included in the programs supplied by Curro. It is something that you need as a parent to manage and install and purchase yourself.
Thanks, Mags. There are a few questions here about, I'm not tech savvy, how can I get help with getting my child's device set up? Absolutely, and we understand that a lot of parents are not necessarily tech savvy. So it's critical that you go to your school and your child's teacher. They should have a process to help your child get their device all sorted out, whether it's the onboarding or it's the certificate. So I think the key is to contact your child's teacher, their registered teacher, if depending on what grade they are, or their class teacher, and ask what the process is for the school. Marcel, maybe you answered this earlier, but there's a question around grade 7 books are not listed on Snaplify.
Yes, so just explain how it works between the school and Snaplify. So Snaplify will sit with the school to create specific book lists. So when you log in, you'll obviously see the books that are on the stationery list from the school. If you're not seeing those books, I'd suggest contacting Snaplify. They've got a support line. They've also got a live chat if you go onto their website. They're normally quite quick to answer. Or you can go to the school and just ask that they help you there, because the book should be showing up. So if the book is on the stationery list or the textbook list provided by the school, you can maybe just contact them to see if the book can be loaded.
Great. And there's another question sort of linked to books again. Can I return books? And I assume that's sort of printed books that I bought from the school so that I can buy ebooks for my daughter. I would guess, again, the school would have had some sort of a contract with whoever the book service provider was. So I would recommend that you contact the school just to check if that's possible. It may be, in which case then you could do that, or maybe you could try and sell it to somebody else. That might be another option.
And then Angela, just a really good question in the chat about if they download Microsoft Education on their computer, would they be able to use it in the future?
It is, and again, I'm going to have to actually check on that. That is a good question. Mags, I don't know if you remember. I think with the operating system, you can revert to the original operating system, or can you not?
You can revert back to the original operating system as long as you saved the key, the security key that came with it. So if you, and please remember, turn off BitLocker on the device while we are talking about that. Otherwise, if you reinstall Windows and you want to, and something goes wrong, then your device will be locked with BitLocker. And if you did not receive an email with that key, or send it to yourself, or looked on the portal to find it and save it, it is a 24-digit key, if I'm not mistaken, and to guess that is impossible. So you need to have that backed up. So I would suggest either stay with the education, or then you might have to buy Windows again. But who knows, by that time you might have Windows 12 or 13. So
yeah, and I think just to sort of explain all of that, so these upgrades and access to Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365 is all through the Curro and Microsoft agreement. So technically you've got access to it while, or your child's got access to it while they're at a Curro school. I will also double check, because I think you didn't have to actually give up your Windows, whatever upgrade you got with Windows. But I would need to double check that. So again, if you would like to follow up on that, please send a request to Service Desk. You can reference this webinar and we will get the correct answer for you. Any others that I've missed?
Angela, there's a lot of questions about Windows 11 education being available on the hub instead of Windows 10.
Yeah, they're sometimes a little bit slower for some reason. So I'm sure it will become available at some point during this year. Normally what happens is they get everything tested and then they make it available. So if you want to, what you can do is upgrade to Windows 10 now, education, and as Windows 11 becomes available through the year, you can then go and upgrade again. So that won't be a problem. So what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on it. I'll follow up with them as well, and we'll see when it's going to become available, and we can send out a communication. Does that answer that question, Mags? I didn't actually see the question.
Yeah,
so,
that answers the question.
Okay. Is it compulsory for my child to reset their password? And if so, how often? So as staff members, we actually reset our passwords every 3 months. The children are not expected to do it that regularly. I think it is actually only once a year, because it is difficult, particularly for the younger children. So I think it's just once a year. However, if you find that something has maybe gone wrong, or you see something concerning, I highly recommend that you just reset the password. That it's probably the most critical. If you leave this call with one thing today, it is making sure that your child has got a strong password. So it needs to be at least 8 characters. It should have numerals. It should have special characters. It should have small letters. It should have caps. Make sure that you've got a strong password. I would change it more regularly if you can. Remember, there is that MyPass portal, and if your child forgets between the two of you and you forget the password, there is that portal that can help you to reset a password create a new password. But it really, really is critical that your child has got a strong password. So I think spend a little bit of time just making sure that that is done correctly. Are there options available to parents to be able to purchase a device through their school? Not through the school, but there is, we didn't actually mention this, but we do have a partnership with ESA. And if you go onto My Hub, so either the application or, the application, I think there's a section called devices. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. And there's a section called ESA, and that will guide you to a link with ESA devices that have been approved in terms of the Curro specifications that we've set out. They've given Curro parents and children good pricing. If somebody wants to find that link quickly, Mags, maybe you've got it, we can put it in the chat, and then you can buy it directly through ESA. It's still not through Curro. Curro doesn't supply devices. It is something that the parents need to engage with a separate service provider on. What is the easiest way to check which Windows is the device you bought for the child? I'm not sure which Windows it has. If you're still at the shop, the easiest way is just to ask the person helping you. And if you are not, then Mags, maybe you can just copy and paste that process that you shared earlier with how to find the device information. We can just post that again. I think that might be useful for everybody. I think I'm just checking them all again. I am using my ebooks. Do I also need to use Snaplify? Do both do the same thing? So each school will have chosen which service provider they're going to be using for the year. So it would likely either be ITSI or Snaplify. They've got similar offerings, both offer digital textbook offerings. So you would need to find out from your school if they've not already communicated this. They generally should have by this stage, to see should you be using My eBooks, which is ITSI, or Snaplify. So again, please do just ask your school and they'll be able to guide you. Let's see. I think we've answered some of these. I'm just scrolling down. Thanks, Mags, for sharing that.
Answer a question.
Myself.
So I do see there are some issues where it says trying to access Snaplify, getting a message you do not have access to the institution. So as Angela mentioned, there were 2 steps to maybe look at. So maybe just contact your school just to ensure that they are making use of Snaplify. They might be making use of ITSI. So just check that it is Snaplify. And then if you're still struggling, I'm going to share the support email for your answer, which is help@snaplify.com. So now sometimes we get confused between ITSI and Snaplify. So maybe just make sure of that I have just shared there. So again, just check with your school. And then if it is Snaplify, you can send an email to help@snaplify.com.
Okay.
Angela, there's a
Yes.
last question. I did not get the Windows license key from the school. How can I access the license key and BitLocker? So unfortunately, the schools or the Curro system does not have a backup of the key. When you buy the device, that is your responsibility to keep that safe, or to get the email and get and keep it safe somewhere, to go to the portal to go and get it. If you did not do that, you will need to reload Windows. So I would suggest please contact Service Desk and they will support you with that process.
Yes, absolutely, Mags. And that's why it's really important that when you go through that upgrade process on the hub, you keep that key safe.
Just another question. So how can I recover the ebooks and other material in case the laptop gets stolen? Is it possible to save ebooks on the cloud? If yes, can you guide on how to save? So that's a really good question. What's really great about if you're using ITSI Snaplify is everything is already in the cloud. So you can access your account, so all of your ebooks and notes from any device, as long as you log in with your Curro credentials, so Curro username and password. So if for whatever reason you can't access that laptop, it was stolen or whatever the case is, You can log in to any device, just make sure you use that same Curro email address and password. All of that information is saved in ITSI or Snaplify's cloud, so it is available there.
Angela, I've got another question about updates. So
Yes.
please do not stop updates. It is very important that you regularly check your Windows updates on the device and update it at home, not at school. So what happens in the mornings when your child opens their device at school, the device sometimes immediately goes to updates, and this creates a big strain on the Curro infrastructure at schools. Because imagine if 300 kids open their devices and it wants to download the updates. So we really suggest that you keep your device updated every couple of weeks. Check the updates, see if there's any updates, download and install them before your child comes to school.
If you're struggling, sorry, Mags, just a quick comment on that. If you're struggling with data and internet at home, then it is fine to do it at school. So, but I think if you've got access at home, it does help. It's quicker to do it, or it can help the load, like Mag says, at home. But if you don't have internet at home, it's fine to do it at school.
And if you do it at school, make sure to set up the schedule so that it does automatically download it. Otherwise, it probably won't. So just make sure that it is on automatic download then.
Is required software pushed via Active Directory policy besides Office 365? What do I need to install for my child? Adobe Reader and that sort of thing. Yes, so depending on how the device is set up, it will be automatically downloaded, but again, different schools use slightly different software. So your school will also advise you if there's anything in addition to the standard stuff like Microsoft that needs to be downloaded. And Mags, Marcel, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
No, that's fine.
Nope, you got it.
Anything else?
What I can add is if your child is doing esports and so forth, those apps you have to install yourself. But otherwise, all the necessary things happen through that portal.
Absolutely. And I think, again, if your child is doing esports, the esports coach at your school should guide that process. And in fact, on that note, maybe a quick advert. So our next webinar is actually on esports. So the value of esports and gaming, and you're going to hear from Mags again in that one. She is our esports facilitator for the group, and we've got exciting plans for esports with really exciting opportunities for learners. It's not just about gaming and being in front of a screen. There are some massive skills development opportunities for learners in esports. So do join us on the 6th of Feb for that. We will also be sharing in the same way that we did this on social media and through schools, details of that one. And then another parent webinar, less to do with technology and games and stuff, is on teenage self-harm and suicide. This is a session that's going to be facilitated by our Curro Learner Support Unit lead, which Johan van Lille. That's going to be on the 13th of February. So do diarize those 2 dates, but you will find all of these details on Curro social media. And I think with that, unless there are any others, we can maybe let everybody get to their dinner or homework.
Yes, there is just one more question, but Mags is answering them in the chat.
Great. Thank you all for spending the evening with us. Like Marcel said, this is quite an information overload, a lot of technical assistance. So if you get stuck, you'll definitely use Service Desk. They're there to help you. Some of the questions may be redirected back to your school. So maybe have a think about, is it something that might be something that your school could answer? If it's a technical query, please do contact Service Desk. All of the details are there again. And I think with that, thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Have a great evening and have a good 2023. Thank you. Goodbye.